and welcome back to the Hot Lap. We are talking Snetterton Fallout, all the news coming out, the BTCC touring car event in Snetterton, and what a weekend it was. Not one of these weekends has disappointed like the Monaco Grand Prix did, I think, on 2024. But there we go, I digress. That's Formula One. Let's get into an arguably a much more exciting form of racing, the British Touring Car Championship. Yes, and when I say racing, I mean cars going side by side, passing, incidents happening. Despite even if you qualified quite far at the back, you have a chance. So, Ingram, yes, let's talk firstly about young Thomas Ingram. He didn't have the best weekend, did he? He really had to dig in deep, and not for the first time. The weather, just like Donington, threw an absolute curveball at Snetterton last weekend. That's the 25th and 26th of May. So far, out the 3 weekends, it's only been the one I went to, Brands Hatch, where I got quite the tan and sunburn on the forehead. The other two, rain. Goodness knows what's going to happen for the next one. But all of this caused Tom Ingram to draw upon every ounce of his racecraft and experience. And he came away with a pair of, I still think maybe disappointing for Tom, but given the absolute chaos that was happening around him, 2 top 6 finishes, and it still sees him in contention for that crown. So Team Bristol Street Motors, they arrived at Snetterton having won 3, that's 50% of the opening races, 3 of the 6 opening races for the 2024 campaign in the BTCC. I mean, it was amazing that Hyundai was doing good, but they really struggled in the damp for that qualifying session, and that ultimately, when you look at it, set them up for not a particularly strong weekend. Ingram himself missed out on advancing to Q2 by 19 thousandths of a second. So the 22 champion found himself in an unlucky 13th on that grid. But he came out swinging the following day. And in front of the live crowd, the TV screens, he went on attack on what was quite a greasy track surface. And with just 3 laps, he had only 3 laps of hybrid deployment available, he climbed up to 8th before setting his sights on Colin Turkington up the road, trying every which way to get him. Inger's persistence finally paid off as he had a good run out of the Williams corner on lap 5 in the first race, drafted past the 4-time, going down the Bentley straight. I mean, of the weekend, that was an image. And as you know, Colin Turkington is one of Tom Ingram's title rivals, and he said himself, you always are going to have good weekends and bad weekends. So he was quite philosophical, and he went on to say that they come and go, but to concede only 1 point, I mean, that's not bad at all. 1 point in the qualifying, in the battle after qualifying further down the field than we had been expecting, and making the wrong call on tyres very much in race 2, I think represented a very good damage limitation. He said, Saturday was a tricky day. We just genuinely didn't have the pace. We calculated our hybrid deficit to be worth about 0.8 of a second a lap, and knew it would be pretty effective at Snetterton, which is the longest circuit that BTCC goes to. And he was talking about particularly the deficit down 2 of a fairly sizable long straights, but he said that didn't tell the full story. When we bolted on wet tyres in qualifying, nothing happened. We just did not have the grip. And he said we went through all the data overnight and tried to come up with a master plan for Sunday, and the Hyundai came alive. As you saw, it came alive on those soft tyres on race 1, and it felt superb, he said, and we did well to battle through against cars that had more hybrid than us, which put a smile on my face. So it was a mixed weekend, but just to come through, just losing 1 point to the championship leader, I think, yes, he was struggling. I do think they should have really done better with the experience of Ingram and the experience that team has. But ultimately, damage limitation, you got to give them a tick. You've got to give them a tick. Despite their struggles, in hindsight, maybe that's the best they could have done. But Bobby Thompson, welcome back, Bobby Thompson, over the moon with that podium in his first race of the year. Yeah, Bobby Thompson was said to be over the moon to score a podium finish in his first race of the season, finishing behind the other guy that had an even better weekend, Jake Hill. Now, in his first race since joining West Surrey Racing, since it was announced 2 weeks ago, Thompson made a strong start to pass Napa's own Dan Camish, arguably the second best driver in the Napa team after Ash Sutton. And the Essex racer then hunted down and caught championship leader Sutton for second, going past them. And I think even Sutton said, like, there's nothing I can do. The hybrid's worth so much more, and I didn't have any. But the 27-year-old then attempted to hunt down race leader. But sadly, his tyres started to fade in those final laps, and he had to settle for second. But what a second it was. And that equals Thompson's best ever BTC result, with the previous runner-up coming what was in a reverse grid race. So I think this means more. Thompson told touringcars.net, which had the article, that they'd been concerned how well he would launch the car at the start of the race due to his inexperience in the BMW 3 Series machinery. He said, my biggest concern was trying to get the thing off the line, because it's the fourth race start I've done in this. I'm trying to collect as much mental data as I can about how to get this car off the line. It seemed to go well. I picked up a couple of spots, and from there it was just about tyre management. He did say, I think I peaked a little early, and I would like to have a bit more at the end, but in those last 3 laps, the drop-off was fairly huge. Saying it was a decent run, and it was over the moon on his first time showing what, let's be fair, one of the nicest looking, they all look nice, but one of the nicest looking cars in purple. Absolutely fantastic. So a massive thumbs up. Welcome back, Bobby Thompson. Surely, if he continues as he started, we will be seeing a debut win for Bobby Thompson. That would be absolutely brilliant. And talking about winning form, I mean, Jake Hill, this is now I think Alan Gow must be crying into his chocolate milk at night, simply because this is now the third time that we've had the same guy win the first and second races of the weekend in touring car. As we said, we had I completely forgotten. Yeah, it was Tom Ingram in Donington, Colin Turkington in Brands Hatch, and now Jake Hill. And this is despite Jake Hill having that 10-second penalty in the second race. I mean, absolutely brilliant. I mean, he doubled with a dominant drive in that rain-affected second British touring car race at Snetterton, and that was despite being handed this 10-second penalty. We had that torrential downpour just before the scheduled start of the race, which saw a delay to proceedings. And when racing got underway 50 minutes later than planned, most of the top drivers decided to go on wets. Those who went for slicks on that race too, and I think this was Jake Hill's best performance. We had Rob Huff from 9th on the grid, and Chris Smiley, starting 18th. Then at the end of the formation lap, a whole tirade of cars ended up coming. I think Ingram, Colin Turkington, Dan Rowbottom, amongst others, leaving what was vacant grid positioned. And this was even a race where the absolutely dominant Ash Sutton made a rare mistake and went. I think he went up twice, but the second time hitting the wall and pretty much out of the race. But it was Jake Hill keeping that measured drive on the wet tyres, looking after them, because it looked like softs were the way to go in that race too. And he kept his head, had that measured drive, and then he won his second race. And now at this point, after winning those 2 races in a row, no, I wouldn't suggest he's championship favourite yet, but more races like that, you have to start thinking about having him in the conversation for the championship this year. Yes, we're only 3 races in, but still, I mean, there are, I think they're 10 rounds, aren't they, essentially? 10 weekends, and we're only 2 weekends away from the half point. So if he continues like this, it's going to be, and I hope he does, it may well be a really, really interesting championship. So from one winner to one, let's be fair, the best driver, but he was very much, for the championship contenders, one of the losers this weekend, because he really had a rollercoaster weekend, and that's exactly how Ash Sutton described it. The Napa Racing UK, he delivered what was, I think, the most impressive qualifying performance on Saturday, putting his Ford Focus ST second on the grid, and this is despite only having one second of hybrid development. I mean, absolutely amazing. And in the first race on Sunday, he took the checkered flag in third. He admitted himself there's nothing he could have done about Bobby Thompson's speed. It was far too much. And then gambling on a dry circuit in race 2 after what was a pre-race thunderstorm, Sutton paid the price for that wrong decision and finished down in 20th after going off, which was a shame. He said it's been a BMW weekend, that's for sure. The pace they've had has been pretty phenomenal. And he said, when I saw Bobby coming at me in race 1 with a hybrid deficit between the two of us, it wasn't worth the fight. He said, in race 2, I believe I made the right call at the time, until we had this second phase of Raven, and yeah, it was almost like another rainstorm at one point. Tom Ingram said he reacted to us going into the pits. I was talking about it with my engineer for the entire green lap, and the conversation was going back and forth. We never really take gambles, and we did. And we thought it was going to pay off, but unfortunately it didn't. That's a shame. He said the car was good. Obviously, off the back of the damage, there were a few little things that weren't quite right with the car in the next race, but to still get to where we did was really good. And that's when he started at the back of the last race, and still he got back to 5th. So in terms of points, disappointing, which is definitely I think one of the losers of the weekend, bearing in mind how, starting 2nd and getting his car pretty much from the back of the road to 5th in that last race as well. It showed what could have happened and how dangerous Asher Sutton is, and probably the fact that Mr. Sutton is arguably still favourite for the championship. But I don't think he's as favourite as he was last year, showing that dominant form. But we'll see. I do think the new hybrid rules have really mixed it up, for better or worse, depending how you feel about that. I imagine that's for another video entirely. But last but not least, the Huff is back. Not the Huff, the Huff. Winning in the BTCC, he said, is exactly what I came back for. And this is from by Chris Ashby on TouringCarTimes.com, and he said he shared his delight after claiming what is his first British Touring Car Championship in 2 decades. Driving for Speedworks, he capped off what was a remarkable day, I think, especially for the fans that had seen 3 fantastic races. And he repeated his heroics from 2004. Initially repeating those heroics, it did seem unlikely, but he did. And Huff said to be winning again in the BTCC is exactly what I came back for. The car felt fantastic all weekend. We've made barely any changes to it from the setup that we arrived with, and the team did a brilliant job. He said, I've always been confident in changeable conditions, and race 2 on the slicks was looking good until the heavens opened, but to come 14th on the grid to win the last one was amazing. I genuinely had no idea we were in the lead. I knew we were coming through, but I saw cars going off in all directions early on and was predominantly focused on pushing and picking people off one at a time. And he said again that the Toyota was really dialed in, just what I've been searching for this season. He said to repeat my 2004 victory at Snetterton was very special, not only for me but for my family and friends as well. I couldn't be happy for the team and everybody else who was there at the weekend to support me. To nail it in my 9th race back, I'll definitely take that. And I do believe it was his I think it's his home race, his closest race, isn't it? If I'm honest. So, yeah, but ultimately, it's after all that weekend, Ash Sutton extended his lead, I think, by Tom Ingram, but by only 1 point. So, yeah, it is super duper close. If you made it to the end, please give us, it would be great. Comment below, let us know what you thought of the weekend. Fingers crossed, my brother, for my birthday, the lovable guy he is, he's decided to get us tickets. We are off to Silverstone in September, which I'm really excited about. I haven't been to Silverstone since I watched the 2021 British Grand Prix. Yep, that was the Copsgate between Verstappen and Hamilton. But I've not been there, I think, since like 2018 for the touring car, and it's my second favourite circuit after Brands Hatch, which I really love. So there we go. But before Silverstone, we've got a lot of races. We've got a lot of touring cars and a lot of rally and F1. So stay tuned here at the Hot Lap if you like that. We do a bit of gaming as well. If you liked the touring cars, especially Super Tours, we did a whole Jason Plato season where we try and win the championship from Jason Plato's 2nd year in the beautiful green liveried Renault Laguna. If you want to check that out, that'd be great. If you don't, fair enough, but give us a subscribe. If you're not subscribed, give us a subscribe so you can watch more content. Comment so you can share your opinions. I love talking about motorsport so much that if you want to come on the show and talk touring cars with me, there will be people out there much more knowledgeable than me. I would absolutely love that. I love meeting people. I love talking about motorsport. I can talk about it for hours, which is probably, you've seen me ramble more than enough times. So we're pretty much getting there 15 minutes into this video. This has been the BTCC Snetterton Fallout. We will speak to you soon. Thank you very much. Subscribe if you can. That would be amazing. See you next time.